Today I'm honored to be sitting down with some amazing veterans, hearing their stories and asking them the question, what does brotherhood mean to you? Thank you so much for being here, and most of all, thank you for your service.
I am Skip.
I'm Ed.
I retired as a major.
I am David.
I am Eric.
I'm Rich.
And we are
soldiers.
Tell me your name and what branch of the armed forces you were in and what your title was.
Skip and Specialist 4th Class, same as a sergeant, E4.
I was in the Army. I retired as a major. I spent a little bit of time in one other branch of service, but the vast majority of my time was in the Army.
Well, my name is David, and I was a combat arms instructor.
My name is Eric, and I was a combat controller. We were attached to Special Forces teams, whether it be a Navy SEAL team or a Green Beret team. Our role was to provide air support.
Rich, Marine Corps.
So what did you think of the film Centenary?
It's impressive. I told you I'm not really a big gamer, but I felt I was watching a war movie. You know, the reality in that thing is amazing. Now I'm thinking, does that mean I can control some of those characters?
It told a pretty intense story from beginning to end.
Really good. The graphics were incredible. A lot of action, non-stop action. I like the storyline, and the realism was pretty intense.
I thought you guys hit the nail on the head. An emotional roller coaster. It was a beautiful soundtrack. It was a beautiful concept. I want to see this as a full-fledged movie. I think you guys got everything right with this. A few moments in there that brought me back to war. Flare going up, and those moments where you're going into an alley, you're just accepting death, and you're going to die with your brother, so it's not a bad way to go. It was a very beautiful depiction of brotherhood and war.
Well, intense. And it was very realistic, and moments happened.
During your years in the service, did you make any connections, any friendships that you consider to be now brothers or sisters? Can you share any specific stories of moments you had with these co-servicemen or women that made you feel bonded, made you feel like brotherhood, made you feel like more than just regular friends? Like,
There's so many. I actually took 5 or 6 buddies to my house one time on the weekend because we had leave. So we're coming back, and one of the things about Scott is he couldn't go too far without having to have a bathroom. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So we're heading back to San Francisco in one car. We're all jammed into this car. I guess there's 5 of us together. And Scott starts in. You got to pull over. You got to pull over. You got to pull over. And so it's like, there's nowhere to go here. Just pull over. And it was like, Scott, come on. And so we pull over, and he jumps out of the car, and he goes running towards this hedge, so he can get out of sight. Whatever. He flies over this hedge, and we hear this, ah! So we all jump out. What happened? We look over. Well, on the other side of this hedge is a ditch that's like 5 feet deep. So he went over the hedge and then dropped about 15 feet on the other side of this hedge. And we never let him forget about this. We're never stopping for you again. And he was just like, the reason he got out of the car was forgotten because he was so banged up from falling in this ditch. But this was Scott. And his thing whenever we heard this, it was Scott came to mind. His favorite saying was, "I don't even believe you did that." And so it was always, "I don't even believe I did that. I don't even believe I did that." But that was his thing, is "I don't even believe it." And to this day, any of those buddies that we call up and we say, "So I don't even, oh yeah, Scott." We all miss Scott.
They know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Tom was a guy I worked with for a while, actually for a long while. And it's not like we were friends. In fact, I wouldn't say we were friends at all. We were, you know, it was a love-hate thing. You know, sometimes we got along and we went out and did things, and sometimes we didn't, and we got on each other's nerves. Maybe you know somebody like that.
And you don't get a choice, do you?
No, you don't get a choice. But we were in one assignment. When I first met Tom, we were thrown together in this assignment, and it was very challenging. And there was only a small number of us in this unit, and so we kind of all had to deal with each other. And even though we didn't necessarily always get along, the crucible of that job pushed us together and made us brothers. And even though I'm not in touch with Tom now, and I don't think I ever will be, I know I look back at our experience, our joint experience together, with some fondness. You know, it was a difficult time, but in some ways, Tom kind of represents that crucible of fire to become brothers, because it wasn't like we really liked each other, but we formed a grudging respect because of that adversity that we went through together. Yeah, we were hand-selected to be part of this unit, and we worked really hard. We put a lot of hours in. We didn't really have any scheduled time off. It all depended on the mission, and we were proud of that. I mean, we worked hard, and when we had a chance, we played hard. You probably can understand that too. But it was a challenge, though, because you know, you'd put in long hours, then you'd get a few hours of sleep, and you'd go back and do it again. Well, that led up to when President Reagan visited Korea and the demilitarized zone, and we were tasked as one of the units with presidential security. So it was our job to kind of keep an eye on things going on around him. And it was a pressure cooker. You know, that day it seemed like that day lasted 36 hours or so. But when he got in Marine One and flew away, it was like we knew we'd done something good.
We were in another country for an extended period of time, and my stick buddy and I, a very good friend to this day, and this was many years ago, were flying low level, following the terrain in essentially a wilderness environment, and we saw a bear in the field we were flying low over, and we chased the bear up a tree, and then we hovered over the tree, and it was nice to be on that end of it instead of the bear chasing us. So yeah, that's just one of those unique moments in time. But for the vast majority of that day, we were doing some pretty intensive flight training, and at nighttime, a lot of intense NVG training.
There was a stage of training where one of my best friends, Chad, and I were up for about 4 days. It was a part of our training. It was called Hell Week, where they kept us up for like 4 days. We got a few naps here and there, but there was this point where we were just physically and mentally drained. There was nothing more in our tank. And the task that was being asked of us was to carry these two 50-pound jerry cans filled with water, including our rucksack that we had that was about 35 pounds, our kit that was another 35 pounds, and we most likely had a wet and drenched uniform, and again, we're without sleep, and this instructor's asking us to run what seemed like a quarter mile up this really long hill. So we're getting screamed at, "Go, get up there," and we're looking at each other. We just start laughing, because we know what they're asking of us is not possible. But then here we see the instructor coming down, "Go!" And then something clicks, something just changed. And I think for me, it was having Chad there. Having another person who was going through the exact same thing as me. And we were both at the same point in our lives. We had nothing left, but here we go together. And yeah, we made it happen. It's giving me goosebumps right now because yeah, it was a task that was asked of us that was, we gave up on ourselves, and then it was like we see each other and we're like, Here we go, man. Here we go. So that's something that sticks in my mind, where when you're at your lowest, it's not so bad when you're with another person who's also at their lowest.
I think his name was Mark. It's been 39 years since this happened. It was 1983. Go to jungle training for 4 days, and you learn how to survive off the jungle. And at the end of the 4 days, unbeknownst to me, was we had to go and find this base camp for these drug runners who processing opium. We had to help them with their drug issues. So afterwards, we were given live rounds, which are total lock and load, and our guide took us to the site and said, there it is. And from the air, you would never see this place. It was the bivouac was camouflage. It was like netting. You couldn't, no way you could. Bivouac, yeah.
Can you explain that?
It was a camping site with netting over top of it with leaves and everything, so it's no way you could see it from above. So you had to go in on foot. So we were there and we went in, and so our guide is yelling in Tagalog to the camp, and all of a sudden we hear yelling back, and they're going back and forth for a little bit, and we're thinking nothing of it, and then all of a sudden he starts shooting at us. And an AK-47 has a very distinct sound, especially when it's pointed at you and being fired. The crack is very, very different than off to the side watching somebody at a firing range. So they start shooting. The sergeant who's in charge of us put us into two-man fire squads. We skirmished out in a fan-like positioning, and we're all the way to the left, Mark and I. And so we're shooting. And little by little, return fire ended up ceasing. And so we were informed to advance onto the target. So we go into the camp, we go under the netting very slowly. And Mark and I, we're just 20-year-old kids. We don't know what war is. We trained for it, but we didn't really have any experience. So when we go in, right in front of us is a bloody dead body that we obviously shot. And for us young kids, that was like, oh my God. So we're mesmerized. And so we slowly start walking towards it. And there's also piles of boxes lined up to make walls. And so as I walk past this one pile of boxes to look at this body that I'm just totally mesmerized with, I see motion out of the side, and I turn, I look, and there's an AK-47 pointed right at me. And Mark was, since he was there with me, he was the one I would talk to all the time. We'd hang out together, and if it wasn't for him, I probably would have become an alcoholic or a drug addict or something, but he kept me focused. He kept me away from the clubs. He kept, we did fun things together to occupy my mind from the trauma of that incident. So Mark was, I haven't talked to him since then. We lost contact. We went our separate ways, and which is part of the military, but like I said, it's almost been 40 years. So,
what does the word brotherhood mean to you?
I didn't have a brother. Did you have a brother?
No.
See, I had two sisters. Brotherhood to me is that unique bond, and typically it's brothers, it's guys. I don't think it's exclusive, but certainly having to do with the military and all of that. That brotherhood is a unique thing. I think you have common interests. I think there is adversity involved many times, because when you come through that, there's bonds that grow. I was never in combat, but I know guys that were, because it was Vietnam era for me. And a lot of my friends, some didn't come back at all, but those that did come back, we had a very special bond, but I could see a super bond with the guys that were in combat together.
Wow, brotherhood is a special term because it goes beyond friendship, it goes beyond professional respect, bringing up a group of people who through adversity and challenge brings them to a place they couldn't otherwise be. And I think that's what brotherhood, you boil it down, it's like it's a group of people who are brought together, who are forged through adversity and challenge to be something more than they could possibly be individually. You go through the fire, and on the other end, you're brothers.
I look back on the years I served, and I formed some very unique, strong bonds with a core handful of men and a couple of women here and there. There's just no comparing the environment that you find yourself in when you're building those relationships with anything in the civilian world. Nothing compares.
I think that's kind of a learned brotherhood where you kind of take people in that you not necessarily have that common core of blood brother. I think it'd be more like someone that a really, really good friend, someone that you can count on to help you in time of need, and you would do the same for them. Kind of like the old saying, "I got your back," kind of a thing, where you're maybe separated from your family by miles, but you feel like a secondary family unit without excluding that actual blood brotherhood that you have as well. It's like kind of a dual universe kind of a thing, I think.
Brotherhood holds an incredible amount of weight in my heart. Brotherhood means never abandoning, never judging, and always having that open mind and open heart and accepting, whether it's a woman or a man, accepting their love and cherishing their life almost more than yours, and knowing that they're doing the same, vice versa. That's probably what brotherhood means to me. It's just something that weighs on my mind a lot in a positive way.
Brotherhood is very important. It is someone who is very special, someone has your back, someone you can lean on, someone who's there with you that you can trust, someone who is like, no matter what you go through, they're going through it with you. They're the same. You both relate together, and you can lean on each other to get through whatever it is you have to get through. And that's brotherhood to me.
So if your brother was here in front of you right now, and you could just say one thing to him, what would you say?
There was a particular Rocky Mountain beer, I won't say the label, but a very famous beer. Back then, you couldn't get that beer anywhere east of the Mississippi. That was his beer. When he came out to California, oh my gosh, he was never without one of those, the Rocky Mountain one. And I would say to him now, because he passed about 15 years ago, was, I got your beer. But the other, so sorry that he's gone. I think I'd probably just say, miss you.
Chad, I love you so much, more than you'll ever know. You've been there with me for my highs, and you've been there with me for my lows. You were there for me when I was surrounded by people and when I was alone. I've always felt safe talking with you, and you've always been supportive, more than a brother. It's like, brother doesn't do it justice, man. You've saved my life in more ways than you'll ever know, and I love you.
Well, once I could start talking again after the crying, I would I'd tell him, dude, thank you so much for, just being there and being who you are, and and being that shoulder to lean on, and the effort he made to distract my mind. I would just thank him and tell him I love him so much, and that how much it means to me that I'll never ever forget.
Have you ever heard of the mobile game Warpath before?
I have heard of Warpath. I have to admit I've never played Warpath. My son plays Warpath. He plays a number of those styles of games. He's got a brotherhood of friends that he has spent, he's 30 years old now, and he knew these guys, 4 or 5 other kids that all grew up in our neighborhood, and he's still super close to every one of them. And they play games online, and they're teammates, if you will, and they're part of their own brotherhood, and it's super strong. It's amazing to now see these kids saying, "You're playing the heck yeah!" It's so much fun, and it keeps us together. One's out in Colorado, one's out in New Jersey. A couple of them are in Northern California.
I have heard of Warpath, and I've seen it, but and I am a games guy, but I have not played it, and I look forward to learning more about it and checking it out.
Having still not seen the game.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure about any of it. My son's a pro gamer, so he knows all the games. So I think I have heard it through him.
You're gonna love it.
You want to get a sniff of what it's like to go to war and put your life on your line and think about another human being before yours. And this is probably something you should play to get a small little idea of what it's really like.
Yeah, I would say amazing, immersive, amazingly realistic.
Those of you that are involved in it, I can see why you're involved in that. It's a pretty amazing thing.
What a realistic game. This is the best mobile game I could ever imagine. It is like being there, so realistic.
It's going to be a very powerful experience playing that game.
Real war makes real brothers.